Okay,
Hi,
and
everyone.
if you, hello. If you would please go ahead and mute yourselves. I did not star six everybody. Um, so I'm going to take community responsibility to have everyone mute themselves as we go through it. Like I said, I have the agenda up if you can see my screen. Essentially, welcome to the Mike July 24th, I'm sorry, community call. And our leadership quote for this month comes from me, and it was something that I actually thought about as I was watching everything that was going on with the George Floyd issues and the disparity in income between the uh, African American families in the Twin Cities and white families in the Twin Cities. If you didn't read the newsletter, it was like 39,000 for the median income from a black family, and then it was like 89 or 86,000 median income for a white family in St. Paul. And so I was sitting there and I was thinking about pay, equal pay and pay equality, and then I came up with this idea, or I saw this quote that spawned this thought that us developing great cybersecurity leaders does not equate to those leaders actually getting paid a salary equal to their white male peers. And so that's what part of it is advocacy, part of it is teaching you guys exactly what you need to do. So community call rules, of course, if you have joined the call before, understand that we have these rules. Calls happen the fourth Friday of each month. All callers will be muted. If you have a question, please use the chat section. Chatham House rules apply. Be professional and respectful at all times. Everything you say is a reflection of your brand. Hold on. My speaker is on the other one. Hold on. Sorry about that. So, all right. So we have a new volunteer. He is a college student out of University of Texas, Dallas. His name is Shirag, and he is doing IT support and web development for us. And great. He's been doing a great job. We've done some things with the back end of the website finally in regards to establishing our community forums and being able, for those of you who are members, you can log in and join the other discussions that we're going to have, continuous discussions that we have, getting a little bit more in depth with your questions and things like that. So if you are a member and you don't remember your password, send an email to IT support at minorities-in-cybersecurity.org, or our shortened, which is MINCYBSEC.org. Of course, we're on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. You can find me. You can find Minorities in Cybersecurity. Also, membership update. We are actually coming up on a year. August is our first year anniversary, and so we're going to run a membership drive again for this August. So we have a discount code of August 2020. It gives nonprofit and government members $50 discount. Professionals get a $50 discount. Students get a $10 discount. I couldn't make it free, guys, for the students out there. You're going to have to give me a little bit of something. Corporate memberships, of course, start at $3,000. And if you have any questions about that, if your organization wants to become members, definitely let me know and send me an email, and I can send out the corporate packet for that. As many of you know, and hopefully that you've heard, that the conference that was scheduled for September has been canceled because, of course, we're in the middle of a global pandemic, and so we had to stop on the in-person thing, and still haven't. I don't believe we're going to be able to do a virtual one either this year. So my goal is to have these calls and have speakers come in on these calls so we can talk through and talk about some of the things that we would have talked about at the conference. Of course, community calls are open to the public, so invite your friends and everything like that to come in and join us. We have our Leadership Book of the Month Club. Our book of the month this week is for August is Women Don't Ask. That call is scheduled, and that's a members-only discussion. That call is scheduled for August the 11th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm usually off work by that time. So newsletters, if you haven't signed up to be on our newsletter, please sign up to be on our newsletter. Now, I ran through all of that because I really want to get to the speakers. So, Renee, were you able to join us? We'll figure out, Renee. We will actually have each individual panelist introduce themselves, and we'll go from there. And I'll see if I can get Renee. So I will start with Darwin. Darwin Salazar, can you take this opportunity to introduce yourself to the group?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks, Mary, for allowing me this opportunity to come on and talk to the MIC community. I think this is a topic that is very close and near and dear to my heart. So I just recently got promoted to senior level product security analyst within Johnson & Johnson. I come from a kind of like an unconventional background into the security realm. I did pre-law for undergrad and Homeland Security in grad school. And so a lot of my cybersecurity skills were self-taught, a lot of just brute force in breaking my way into the industry. And I think communities like this and mentors such as Mary certainly played a pivotal role, not only in getting me into the industry, but also ensuring my continued success within the industry. So whoever's on this call on a Friday evening, I certainly applaud you, and I'm looking forward to give you some tips and tricks on negotiating your salary. So that's a bit of myself. I'll hand it off to Lyron.
Thank you, Darwin, and thank you, Mary, for this wonderful invite. I've known Mary for, I guess, a couple of years now, and always impressed with what she's actively doing throughout multiple communities, including this community of this gathering that she has for folks who are minorities in cybersecurity. So really appreciate all the work that you're doing, and thank you for the invite. My name is Lyron. I have about 3 decades, a little over 3 decades of technical background, going back to Novell 1X was the first system that I was responsible for managing. And started cybersecurity training around 1999 when I got my CISSP, because the company I was working for, BMG Direct, was looking at, actually all of the BMG family was looking at going to being a publicly traded company. They're still a privately held organization, and they wanted to know what kind of constraints that would mean. So that was my foray into cybersecurity. One thing I'd like to say as encouragement is I didn't go to college until I was 40, and I got almost every job based off of stackable credentials. So actually getting certifications and being certified was very important back then, and it still is important now. So just some encouragement for some of you out there that may be sort of starting your path off into this world, and there's never been a greater need for cybersecurity professionals.
Well, thank you both, Darwin. Renee, were you able to join yet? She's having trouble. Well, there she is. Renee Forney just joined the meeting. It's your turn to introduce yourself. Can you hear us? She hasn't gotten the audio yet. All these IT people and all these technical issues, man. We always have technical issues as IT people. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to ask the first question, because it shows that Renee hasn't been able to get her audio yet. So we're going to go ahead and get into our questions, and then we'll circle back to Renee. So Darwin, this question is for you, because you recently came out of of college into your first role here at Johnson & Johnson. So can you, what advice would you give the younger folks, the younger professionals that are on the call right now, going into their first role and how to negotiate that first salary?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is a great question because having successfully negotiated my salary prior to stepping into my first role, I do have a bit of insight and firsthand experience in negotiating my salary. And I think one of the things that certainly helps is prior to receiving an offer and while you're going through the interview process, already have an idea of like a ballpark figure of what you would like to be paid on a yearly basis. And also, another thing that's beneficial is look within your LinkedIn network and also your phone book, or if you're old school like me, within your stack of business cards, and try and see if you have people within that organization or that have previously worked at that organization, and they may be able to provide you some insight onto what's the culture when it comes to talking about compensation, benefits, and also they may even be able to provide you a range of what you should be looking for at that entry level, or if it's an executive position or whatever the case may be. I know one of the things that helped me a lot is that Mary actually worked at Johnson & Johnson, and so and she had also hired folks into roles within J&J, and so I already knew that. I gave her a call, and she was able to. Initially, I felt that the offer was a low ball. To be fully transparent, it was about $66,000 per year, and for someone coming into cybersecurity, I had always seen the stat that it was like $105,000 per year, or like $85K or whatever the case may be. Certainly not as low as $66K. And I think one of the things that you need to keep in mind, stepping into an entry level role or any role, is that they're going to try and lowball you, and not only because it's your first role, but also because you may be a minority or a woman. They may be looking to offer you on the lower end of the range of what they could potentially offer. And so having that conversation with Mary gave me the confidence to go ahead and push that counter offer letter through. Another thing, so that on that counter offer letter, I was able to dig it up and find it. So I negotiated about 2 years ago, and I've been with Johnson & Johnson for about 2 years. And so I didn't think I could find the letter, but within email archives, I was able to purge it. And so it went a bit something like this. And so certainly you want to express gratitude about the offer. So I said, I'm truly humbled, honored, and nothing short of excited to have received this offer for this position within Ethicon, which is medical device division within Johnson & Johnson. And so the opportunity and the team I would be on and the project that I would be working on would allow me to grow tremendously, et cetera, just essentially pampering the offer and the recruiting manager and the hiring manager. And then I said, but I don't feel I've realized that the proposed salary is less than what I was expecting and less than the local average for the entry-level security analyst position. And then I go ahead and provide the figures. The median salary, according to pay scale, is about $86K. And so I feel that increase of around 15% would be fair. And then I also go on to leverage some of my previous experiences. So having worked with like subject matter experts on IoT security and working on these projects and having the CompTIA Security Plus and the CCSK certifications, I feel that my overall experience would be a great asset to the Ethicon team. After consulting with my peers, my mentors in the security industry, I certainly think that, asking for that much and just reiterating the increase that you're looking for is helpful as well. And when you close out the letter, you want to reiterate that you are certainly, express your gratitude that you're certainly grateful for the offer. And so that certainly worked out. I received a call. I didn't receive a reply to the email. Instead, I received a call from the recruiting manager about 15 minutes after I sent out the letter, and he basically said it's done. So that was fairly easy. I thought it was going to be scary. I thought I was going to be met with some pushback, but that was not the case. So certainly, I would say send a letter and try to negotiate your salary, or at least initiate that that motion over email rather than over the phone. It allows you to think it through much better, and for your peers and your mentors to look it over so that you're not coming across as harsh, or to just ensure that you're asking for a realistic figure. Certainly you want to ask for the high end of the range so that you could meet somewhere in the middle. Some things that you shouldn't do, I think, for me, are that when you're negotiating for a higher salary, you shouldn't negotiate on the basis of XYZ circumstance. For the most part, some corporations may not care that you're in student loan debt or your current financial situation. They're looking at filling a vacancy, and especially when you're coming into an entry-level role, you're more so of an asset, and they don't see their ROI over the years when compared to like someone stepping into an executive position as big. And so try and negotiate on the basis that you're looking for fair pay, and that also you're bringing a ton of value to the organization, whether you're leveraging your certifications, previous internships, or previous experiences like fellowships or leadership experiences. So last thing, the worst thing that could happen is that they could say no, or they'll offer you a lower increase than what you're looking for, but they would never rescind the offer. They were your top choice out of the applicant pool, and so having to go through that cycle again is not something that they would like to do. And so don't be scared. Go ahead and write the letter up. Circulate it to your mentors and the folks within your network, and just push it out. The worst that could happen is you're getting lower than what you asked for, but in a very rare case they'll say no. So those are my 2 cents on there. I think we'll leave questions for after, but
we'll leave questions for after. And we the tech girl that is Renee Forney finally figured out how to log in. So we're gonna have you, Ms. Forney, introduce yourself first, and then I want you to roll into this particular question because you are a Black female executive. You know, what advice would you give women trying to navigate salary negotiations when dealing with our own level of insecurities? You know how we are, and we're, do I ask for this much money, and how do I, articulate that I'm worth this? And sometimes we come in lower than we should because we say, oh, we let our insecurities take hold. So first introduce yourself, and then tell us a little bit about, how you get through those insecurities to ask for what you deserve.
Great, thanks. Hello, everyone. How are you all doing today? Hoping all is well, everybody's safe and happy. I'm Renee Forney. I'm currently at Capital One, former Deputy CIO at the Department of Energy, and Executive Director of Cyber Skills at DHS. I've been doing this a long time. Mary and I often talk about that. And it never gets easy to talk about money. I think we find ourselves in a situation where the imposter syndrome steps in, and we immediately begin to say, oh, I shouldn't do this, or maybe I just want to get a foot in the door, or something like that. And I think that it's important to know that you are valuable, know your worth. One of the ways that I personally try to figure my way through that particular maze of talking about the money is to, of course, do your research, see what you can find out from a company perspective online about, hey, what are the average ranges in that particular organization. But the thing I think that is most valuable to me is my internal network and reaching out to my mentors and peers to help prepare me for the conversation. A lot of times when you're self-doubting, that whole self-doubt thing comes in many places. And when you have a group of people who you can reach out to, who can talk to you and ensure you, and and help speak truth to power in reference to what you bring to the table. It really helps to support you when you go in, right? Prepare yourself. You really have to have a conversation with yourself. Be truthful with yourself. And sometimes that's not the easiest thing to do. And that's why it's very important that you, first of all, find out as many facts as you can, right, by whatever you can search and find online about average salaries in that area. But for me, having that network of friends who are not afraid to speak truth to power and tell you the story that you might not want to hear, who can also bring visibility to key assets that you may have that you may not see, because you just are you, and you do it matter-of-factly. You bring whatever you bring to the table matter-of-factly, and you're so close to it, it's very difficult sometimes for you to see and to be able to judge, hey, I bring this to the table. Oh, I do this, I do that. Oh, I didn't think about that. Oh, in my last job, I did X, Y, and Z. I didn't really think about that. And so using your friends who have a circle of influence on you, I think, is an important thing to do.
Well, thank you, Renee, for that. And so I want to move on to Lyron and ask you, we talked about the size and structures of organization, and, depending on government, private, all these different entities, what going into a particular organization and size, how does that really prepare you from a salary negotiation perspective?
There's a lot there. I appreciate Renee and Darwin's comments on this. Very helpful to keep in mind. I'm hearing a little feedback. I don't know if everybody is on mute. It seems like it's echoing. But what I would say is that taking a step back, and it's a great question, taking a step back and just trying to look at things from a broader scope will be extremely helpful. So over the past 35 years, I've worked in not-for-profits, privately held companies, probably one of the largest privately held companies in the world, BMG. I consulted for just about probably everybody's company represented on this call at one time or another, Somerset, Johnson & Johnson, and publicly traded companies as well. They all have different behaviors. Civil service did that for a few years, working for the Department of Education. I was the network manager there for a few years. What I would have to say is there is a need for you to take a step back, look at what is the environment that you're in. So set your personal goals in line with the organizational mission, with how the organization is set up, mission on strategies, and then what is the service. If you can't answer the question, and now I'm kind of taking you into the future. I'm saying, say you have the job, and now don't stop doing what you did when you got the job. Because I would tell people who've worked for me, nobody's going to promote you like you promote yourself. So once you understand what the missions are for the organization, what the organizational strategies are, what is the service, what's the primary service that they're delivering, align your goals with those things. Then track what you're doing. And if you don't track what you're doing, when it comes time for pay increases, meritorious raises, and they offer you something that looks quite under what your value is, you'll have nothing to say. But educating yourself on what's going on in your organization. For instance, what are your cost of goods sold, right? You may not sell a product per se, but there may be a service that you sell. And in your department, what is the actual total cost of ownership to produce that good? That's the language that you need to understand. If you don't know that language, then forget about negotiating anything. When you understand what the cost of goods sold are, what the cost of services are, what your total cost of ownership is in your department, then you will understand that your department has a finite budget, and within that finite budget, they allocate meritorious raises, pay increases. I've been on both sides of it. So I've been on the side directly within the executive departments, and I've been on the side in the management where you receive it. So I've both given it out and I've received it. And this is what they're looking at. They're looking at finite budgets. And within those finite budgets, they're now allocating increases and meritorious raises based off of performance. And frankly, sometimes it's based off of personality and, that they like somebody more than they like you. And it's good for you to just know that, especially if you're just starting off. But the thing that is the great equalizer is talent. No matter how well somebody likes a personality, that your talent is actually meeting up to the goals and to the strategies and the mission of the organization. So that's my advice. I know it's beyond the point of entry and the initial negotiation, but I just don't want you to think that that's the end. That's the beginning. You get the job. Now, on an annual basis, you're going to have an opportunity to continue increasing. And every year, I have responded with a non-approval of the increase that I got, and I got more because I responded that way. But if you don't know it, you don't do it. And just as Darwin was saying, the lowball offer, they'll continue to do it.
If you stay low, if you start low, you're going to stay low.
That's right. So that's my advice.
Well, that's great. So from a practical perspective, certification. So, Lyron, you mentioned certifications, the importance of certifications. I always get that question. I'm a professor as well for my students. What's the value of this particular certification? How do you articulate, equate that dollar amount in your salary negotiations to this certification? So I will go around the table to see if anyone has any comment on that particular question.
So,
Renee,
I would say this is certainly an interesting question because considering myself kind of like a hoarder of security certifications, I have the CCSK. I've recently got the Azure Fundamentals. I'm going for the Azure Security Engineering Cert. I have the Security Plus. I have some Department of Homeland Security, Incident Response, and Federal Emergency certifications as well. I've done most of this while in my current position with J&J. And so how do I leverage that while during bonus season, when getting promoted and they're mentioning the percentage of your increase, how do I leverage that, that growth and that passion for security, which is shown in me going after certifications and not being stagnant within the organization? How do I leverage that to show and provide evidence for a higher increase? I'm not sure, so I just wanted to add those 2 cents because I would certainly like to listen and take notes on this one.
Well, I have some thinking on that. So I've also been at the certification from both sides. I would say when I started off, they were my entry into companies, and then they were my consistent recognition of being able to get meritorious increases based off of, a composite set of knowledge that I took in the previous year. And I would always reference that in my salary increase. When I was hired at BMG, I didn't have a degree. They knew I didn't have a degree, I did have multiple certifications at the time, the MCSE and a Novell certification I had. That was sufficient for them. And I ended up, by the time I left there, it was the longest job I've had. I worked there for 6 years. I ended up managing over 200 people. Most of them had masters of science because they were doing development and programming and all these other things. But those stackable credentials, if you can match them to your competency, that's the power. If you can align it back to what were the goals, how did I accomplish them, and then this is what I learned in order to get there, that's when it's powerful. That's when they're like, you're right. You did accomplish this. You did satisfy this need that we have, and it was because you increased your capabilities, by developing a new competency. So I highly recommend it. And I've been on both sides of the learning and the teaching. So I teach the CCSK. I co-authored the CISSP and the CCSP. So I'm the co-author of those publications that they use in training. And I would have to say, in all the work that I do, in the connections that I have and the people that I work with, it makes a difference with employers as well, because I don't know if it's still the same, the $5,000 a year that they allot for training, when they make that allotment, they're actually expecting delivery on that investment. And so just to go to a class, just get a certification, don't stop there. Keep tying in, journal if you have to. What did I do that made the difference from before I knew this? It's a very important thing.
I would agree with you on that. Getting the cert is definitely a positive thing to do, but being able to demonstrate the competency that goes along with the cert is even more important. The cert is like icing on the cake, because there are instances where folks go get the cert, but they can't do the job, right? And so the best way to discuss the fact that, hey, I've gotten this cert, so I would expect to be compensated in some way, is to, as you said, Darwin, is to make sure that, hey, I've got this cert, and here are the things, here are the competencies that I have gained over this year, along with the cert, right? Because the two have to go hand in hand. It cannot be, oh, I just have the cert. Now, having the cert helps open the door, right? If you're looking for a new position and, someone sees your resume and they see the laundry list of certs, that is a great way to open the door. But once you get in the door, you have to be able to speak directly to the competencies associated with it and how you have demonstrated or can demonstrate those competencies.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you guys for that. And Darwin, I see you. But I want to flip the question, because we're going to get the questions from the group in a second. But I want this particular question because I actually have experience with this. But have you ever, any of you have ever received actual tangible evidence that you were being underpaid? Anybody have that experience?
Yeah, Lyron, I have the experience. I saw Lyron's face light up, though, so I'll let him go first, absolutely.
So this is just a quick story. It wasn't necessarily about me, but at one of the companies I worked with, there were these consultants that came in that were not following the guidelines for how to create a test environment. And what they ended up doing, long story short, is mailing out an Excel spreadsheet that represented all HR data on every individual. And even though my team was able to get back most of the email, because the CEO actually called me from lunch, and I thought, can't get called from lunch, I'm going to get a raise. And went back to the office, and he's like, what is this? And it was these folks that ended up getting kicked out of the company, these consultants. But the whole company turned on its head. And while it started off very negative, I would have to say every case study I've read where they have, and I know this is preaching from the bottom up, but, you know, showing proof of companies that have transparent pay, I would say after 4 or 5 months after all the sourness that came from it, people's attitudes generally changed, and they understood that, wow, if I am doing this job, this is what I should be compensated for. And also, you know, people who were in managerial positions knew that as well.
Wow, that's a great story, Lyron. And I think the seriousness in which the CEO took to address that issue just goes to show how important pay and salary is. He flipped the company on its head. He let go of the consultant almost as an instinct or a reaction. And I think he probably may have reacted more serious than he would in the case of a data breach of his customers. So that's pretty crazy. So like in my case, when I was first stepping into J&J, I received my initial offer. I mentioned it was $66K. I reached out to Mary. I did feel like it was a lowball offer compared to what entry-level security analysts should be making. And she mentioned that is the salary that they offer for folks stepping into ITLDP roles, which is the Information Technology Leadership Development Program. You're not doing IT, you're doing security. You should be compensated as such. And so that was certainly acted as one of the bases and gave me confidence to go ahead and submit that counter offer letter. Another thing, though, I'm working on a project where there's a ton of resources and money being put forward to kind of scale up, and there's a lot of hyper growth in mind. We're paying consultants, and there's contracts that the numbers are crazy. We're bringing in security consultants, and they're being paid sometimes double, and I'm doing like more work than they are. So to me, when I went ahead and negotiated and countered my bonus during the holiday season, I used that as a basis because my manager is pretty transparent in saying that we're paying these people way too much and they're not doing enough. So I kind of used that against them when negotiating my salary. So those are two instances, kind of not at the scale of Lyron's, where you could compare and contrast and see actually what the numbers are and whether or not women are truly being underpaid, which I certainly think is the case in most organizations. But yeah, that's concrete evidence. For me, it was more so my manager is telling me and giving me hints the entire time, so I used it against them. So certainly be conscious and look out for those clues that you can write down and have a list, not only of things that projects that you've worked on, and also notes from managers saying that great job, Darwin or Lyron or Mary, and use that as evidence to build up your case on why later on in the year during bonus season or when you get your promotion on why you should get that increase.
Yeah, I have two stories, and I'm gonna tell them real quick before I ask the question. What Darwin is talking about with Johnson & Johnson was a spreadsheet. They literally had a spreadsheet that they had the salary ranges from entry level all the way up to CEO. Now, they tracked me out there as the black person that's going to recruit black people for Johnson & Johnson. And then I asked my boss, I said, well, what's the salary range for the entry-level folks that you're trying to get into? Because that's what they're going to ask me. Oh, I don't know, Mary. I don't know what you're talking about. It depends, this, that, and the other. And I went to HR, and I said, okay, you guys want me out here. What's the salary range? They sent me the spreadsheet. They actually sent me the spreadsheet with all the salary ranges from entry-level all the way through CEO. And so I knew. And so my boss, he says, and I asked him the question. I was like, well, what is the range? He said, I don't know. I said, well, I don't know why you don't know. I know because I have the spreadsheet. And I showed him the spreadsheet. Because, again, the transparency. If you have that transparency, then you feel as if you're getting paid your value, then you have your target and you can go up there. Darwin just actually I still had the spreadsheet when he was negotiating. And so I knew what the ranges were. So he got lucky in that regard. But the one time it happened to me was, and it was indirect evidence. So I started working for an organization. I'll tell you, GE Capital doesn't exist anymore. Started working for GE Capital. I gave them my salary range because when they asked me what I wanted to get paid, I gave them a range. And when it got to the negotiation part of it, HR wouldn't go over the highest number that I gave them. So they gave me the highest number in my range. I said, okay, fine. I was good with it. I was working from home. No big deal. Get around to the first year of raises. So I had a team under me, and what GE Capital did, they went and they looked at the market and they readjusted salary based on position, based on what was going on, what you would get paid in the market. So they automatically adjusted, and I think they did this like every 2-3 years or so. And so one of my employees, she ended up getting like a 15% raise because she was that far under market value. But I ended up getting the same darn raise. And so I ended up getting about a 15%. And so that made me sit there and think, it's like, well, I know why y'all told me she deserves a raise, and I know why y'all adjusting these. So that means I'm 15% under what I should be getting paid, which is probably the minimum of the higher range that I need. Okay. But I wasn't bitter. It was okay. But if anything, we're going to turn to the group now. And I know there's questions the last 15 minutes. Hopefully you guys aren't shy. We have a lot of people on the call. So, unmute yourselves and pepper us with any questions that you may have. And don't make me start calling people.
Hi, this is Ruba Abraham.
Hey, Ruba.
Hi. So my question is related to the certifications. I mean, we've talked, everybody talked about the importance of certifications, but I'm a senior I'm a senior database security engineer, and I have no management skills, not no management, but I haven't been in any role that requires management or to become a manager. So I wanted to venture into that area by acquiring some skills. So I've asked one manager at a company, and what he said is that if you don't have enough certifications, or if your subordinates have more certifications than you, they will be disrespectful to you. So how true is that? I mean, if you have the experience, but then you don't have as many certifications as your subordinates, so is that a bad thing? I mean, they are important, but to this degree?
I will say something, but I will let my guest speakers speak first.
I'll jump in. I would have to say, anecdotally, my whole experience is the opposite of what you've been told. I, throughout most of my career until I was 40 years old, had no degree, didn't even have a bachelor's degree, and were managing people who were degreed in various computer sciences at various levels, bachelor's and master's. What I brought was, there's a word called autodidactic, and it's self-learning, self-training, self-taught. That's what I brought. That was my gravitas. And it would equal or surpass those who had degrees. So the certification is powerful and important, but it is not the end-all be-all. And you can have people working for you, as I did. Some engineers were CCIEs. And I never got my CCIE, never planned to get it. Still don't have it today. And I had multiple, Cisco certified engineers who were working for me. So the management skill, and by the way, the kind of advice that you got, and I'm making a huge assumption here, but the kind of advice that you got makes me think that the person that gave you that advice is someone who believes in battlefield promotions. That is, people get promoted based off of their accomplishments with creating, delivering, producing, managing a widget. It is wholly different from managing people.
Thank you so much. This makes
Yeah, because, I mean, leadership is different, right? Going from a individual contributor to a people leader is completely different. And having the leadership skills, because there are plenty of people that worked for me that had multiple certifications. I just happen to have the Esquire, the JD behind my name. But if anything, they had all the technical certifications. However, I was able to translate what they were doing to executive management. So again, when you start talking about becoming a manager, it becomes less about you as an individual and more about how you can motivate others to accomplish the goals or whatever goals you set out. Anybody else have any comments on that?
I would just say I highly recommend also, I'm sorry, Darwin, I would just highly recommend also using periodicals from like Harvard Business Review on management capability, and grow your skills through research. Start in a place like that. That's going to fuel your thinking on other places to start growing those capabilities.
Thank you so much. This is great from everyone. Thanks, Mary, and everyone.
Anybody else have any pressing questions out there? Come on, guys.
If no one, I have another question.
Go right ahead. Don't be shy.
I'll be starving for questions. Yeah. So do you think nowadays with the COVID and what's happening and with the unemployment, let's say you get a job offer and you think you're not getting exactly what you're expecting or what you're worth, do you think it's the time to, okay, I'll take whatever they offer and not negotiate much, or you still have to get your worth?
Renee, you want to take that one?
Well, we are in unprecedented times, and the market, I feel as if the market right now will bear something different than what it has in the past, right? Because of the overall unemployment number. You have to figure that into it. When you're in a country and the unemployment rate is as high as it is, and you have as much uncertainty in the marketplace as a whole, salaries, you have to come down. I'm trying to figure out the politically correct way to say it. You have to really think about what's important to you, right, at this point, because the number of layoffs that we've seen across the marketplace and across all sectors, right? Like no sector is coming out of this unscathed, right? You have, especially in our fields, right? And so because of that, you have to think about what's important to me from a salary perspective now. Is it that I don't have a job and I need a job? So I need some salary versus let me fight for everything that I would fight for if we had a 4% unemployment rate in this country. Just making up numbers. But that still doesn't mean that you don't at least try to ask for what you're worth, right? But you have to, I think, almost any person, because of the unprecedented time that we are in. We have never been in a time like this, right? Other than the Depression, I guess, where the unemployment rate and the uncertainty of our economic base is so high right now, given where we are. There's so many unknowns. There's so many different factors that are key right now. We're operating in a time where our economy is being hit from all sides. And it's not just the U.S. economy, it's the global economy, right? It's unstable right now. So that being said, it's a time where you really have to look inside yourself and think about what's important to you, right?
Well, I just took a job. During this pandemic, I started my new role last month, June 8th, and I still negotiated. And again, like you said, it all depends on, because there are pockets of this economy that are doing well. So it all depends on where you are. I mean, I've seen a lot of people still in cybersecurity getting good roles. And it's, again, doing your research, understanding the organization, understanding where they are. Like I said, I took this role, I negotiated for my salary just like I would anything else. But I did not go as hard as I probably would have gone if I didn't, recognize that this is something that we need, that I needed for the long haul. So there was a sense of humility when understanding where I was and where I wanted to go. But you still have to advocate. You still have to ask the question, right? And so I did still ask the questions that I wanted to make sure I was comfortable, that I wasn't being undervalued, and I wasn't at all. So
right. So kind of so I just wanted to add a bit more on that and piggyback off of what Renee and Mary said. So this is an experience that's pretty fresh. I recently got promoted on Monday to senior level product security analyst, and my promotion was set for February. It's July, so that's about 5 months after they had, we went over my end of year review. They gave me like 5 stars, superb reviews, and you're certainly on the track for promotion, like within the next month or two, et cetera, et cetera. Nice words. COVID came. I'm in the medical device sector, and with elective surgeries being down because of the COVID surge, the medical device sector within J&J was hit hard. We just released numbers last week. Compared to last year, Q2, we were down 32%. So it was bad. And so I've seen the effects within the organizations, and I saw how hard my manager and my director were fighting for my promotion. They put me on a letter of, I think it was a cap of 10 folks throughout the entire medical device sector that were on a short list that was sent up to the CIO and the CISO, and they had to get approved for the promotion. So I really haven't waited so long, and haven't seen how hard, or just seeing like the litigation that my managers and had gone through to get me this promotion. I was grateful, but not only that, I did feel that it was a fair increase. So seeing the circumstances, I didn't want to go ahead and say like and counter offer and try and get an increase. I did that for my bonus. We were in better times there. Just being a bit conscious. I know Mary would probably disagree, but that's my experience.
We know Mary's a little volatile. Did we have any other questions?
Hey, Mary, this is Cheryl Cooper. And
Hi,
my
Cheryl.
question, hi, Mary, is I'm looking to get out there in the job market and start looking again. Haven't been out there for a while. And so my question is around salary negotiation. If that company or that hiring manager comes back and says, hey, we can't do that salary, hey, but we can give you these benefits or these stocks or this bonus or these perks to offset that salary, how would one then approach that negotiation, or would you negotiate it, and what are some of the things that I should be asking?
So this is the transition from salary to compensation package, which are two completely different things. I have plenty to say, but I'm not talking that much today. So, Lyron, Renee, I'm sure both of you have experience with compensation packages.
Yeah,
based on your field.
I'll just say real quick, I know we have 3 minutes. Last job offer, last company and corporation I worked for, BNY Mellon. When I went in there as an officer of the corporation. They were north of 200K, and that was probably 5K less than what I thought I should have been compensated for. And what I did is I said, okay, if you can give me a guarantee that I will have a consideration of a raise after 3 months, I will take it, and that my bonus will be 5% above what the average is. And they signed it. That was a sign. So you do have to be creative. There's no rule that can't be modified or broken. You do have to be creative, and you do have to talk, and feel free. All they can do is say no. All they can do is say, we can't do that.
Yeah, I know we only have a minute left. I will leave with this. Ask for what you want. Don't be afraid. Ask for what you want. I think that's really key. And as Lyron said, everything is on the table. There are times where the signing bonuses can be negotiated, the amount of stock, the whole nine, because they already have predefined ranges for all of that. It's about you figuring out where you want to land, in the range. And so, again, I'll end with ask for what you want.
Okay, Renee and Dr. Andrews, thank you for your perspective. That really helped.
Great. Well, thank you all very much. I know we're at time. We probably could continue to have this discussion over, but I don't want to go over. I want to respect everybody's time, my speakers' time. Thank you guys so much for doing this, for joining our community call and adding your extensive knowledge and experience to this discussion. For those of you who are members, we actually are going to continue this discussion internally on our discussion board. Please, if you have any problems with logging in, send Chirag a email, itsupport@minoritiesincybersecurity.org. He can reset your email, and we can continue to have this discussion. Thank you guys so much for joining. I really appreciate it. You guys have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Have a great week.